This episode of Defining Diabetes is brought to you by Dexcom, Omnipod, the Contour Next One blood glucose meter, and Touched by Type 1. Please visit touchedbytype1.org, dexcom.com/juicebox, myomnipod.com/juicebox, or contournextone.com to find out more about the sponsors. In this episode of Defining Diabetes, Jenny Smith and I will be defining bump and nudge. Now, you know Jenny. She's in all the Pro Tip episodes and Defining Diabetes and Ask Scott and Jenny. She's also a person who's been living with type 1 diabetes for over 30 years. Jenny holds a bachelor's degree in human nutrition and biology from the University of Wisconsin. She is a registered and licensed dietitian, a certified diabetes educator, and a certified trainer on most makes and models of insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitoring systems. Jenny's services are for hire. Check her out at integrateddiabetes.com. We're going to get started in just a moment, but before we do, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Do you have an absolutely spectacular endocrinologist, certified diabetes educator, diabetes nutritionist, anybody who's helping you with type 1? Do you have one like that you'd love to share with other people? Or are you looking for one that fits that description? Check out juiceboxdocs.com if you do. JUICEBOXDOCS. It's a place where I'm collecting an amazing list of fantastic support for people with type 1 diabetes. It's absolutely free. If you have somebody great to add, check it out. If you're looking for somebody, check it out. I want to do bump and nudge as a defining diabetes, and I actually want to do it later as an add-on to the Pro Tip series. But for now, this is just a small definition. Listen, I don't pay any attention to what other people are saying in this space, which is sort of part of how I've come to say things in my own way. I don't know if I made this up or not. I feel like I put these two words together. Maybe, I don't know if I did or not. I think I did. But when I first started saying, you can just kind of bump or nudge, to me in my mind, somebody asked me this recently. They're like, I've always been dying to know, when you say bump, are you talking about insulin or food? And when you say nudge, are you talking about insulin or food? I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I know how I think of it, but yeah.
I bump with insulin and nudge with food. What do you do?
So it's kind of funny. I bump with food and I nudge with insulin. So I kind of think of it the opposite way, but yeah.
So it doesn't matter how it occurs to you.
No.
It's the idea of, staying between the lines on the road, right? Just, the way you'll hear me, if you hear me in public talking about it, I'll just say, when you're driving and you begin to drift and you touch the yellow line on the right, you don't yank the wheel back to the left because then you end up swerving into the other lane. You just want to kind of bring the wheel back almost an imperceivable amount and bring yourself back in line again.
Yep.
And that's how I think about blood sugar. Say I see a 110 diagonal up, I want it to be 90. And, the way that made sense to me originally was what I noticed, in the beginning was that it took a much less insulin to stop 110 and bring it back to 90 than it did to stop 150 or 200. And then when I started using more and more insulin, that started creating lows later, which then created a need to feed the insulin, right? And I thought, okay, well, I'll just keep bumping it back down again. And then, I was like, oh, why am I always treating with 15 carbs? Like, who did that to me? What person said 15 carbs, 15 minutes?
Right.
And that was such a long time ago. It doesn't apply to now. I have this technology. Insulin works differently, blah, blah, blah. So I started doing this thing where, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I'd put the juice box in Arden's mouth, and when I was like, that's enough, and I'd yank it away. I'd be like, that's it, it's over. And she didn't want it anyway, so she was cool with not drinking more.
Right.
To try to nudge, a blood sugar that's falling, just get it back level again.
Right.
You hear people talk about, I use 4 Skittles, or they know, like, but most people, once they rip the package open, it's that feeling of like, well, there's 15 Skittles in here and I'm not wasting them.
Eat them all.
I'm going to eat them all. I prefer to throw away 8 of the Skittles, but, and so this idea of bumping and nudging is an idea of how to keep stability, with your blood sugar. Now, when I developed that, for Arden and then shared it on the podcast, I didn't realize there was going to be more to it moving forward. And that's why there is, if you're listening to this, there is a pro tip somewhere about bumping and nudging. You should go find it, because if you find yourself bumping and nudging too much, something's wrong somewhere.
Correct.
Right. So it's a great tool for variable days, when things aren't quite going right, but doesn't, I think of it, I use it mostly still around Arden's period, because I have settings for Arden that when she's not hormonal, it doesn't look like she has diabetes. And the minute hormones come into the picture, there's needs that change for insulin, but I don't want to go make I'm not going to make a across the board change to all of her settings so that 4 days later, when her hormones like settle back down, like I don't want to go back and forth. So I find myself bumping more, nudging more in those uncertain times. I probably just talked way too much about it, but I do really want to I want to hear about how you use it in your life.
No, that's the same. And I think it goes back to making sure that for the most part, your settings are well set, because the variables are the place where you would expect to need the bump and nudge concept. On the days, like you said, from a hormone standpoint, or I ended up spending, 6 hours at the park today versus only being there for an hour, like on other days, right? Those days might be the ones where you use a little bit more bumping and or nudging, depending on what's going on. But overall, on your standard day to day, if settings are right, you really shouldn't need to be using that concept all the time.
Yeah.
And if you are, something's not quite right. Or you're maybe not using the advantage of some of the smarter features of your pump, so that you don't have to do that all the time.
It's an interesting tool in that it's functional and diagnostic at the same time. When you need it, it's an amazing functional tool for type 1 diabetes. But if you need it too much, it is a red flag. It's a, hey, there's something going on here. And so bump and nudge to me is more of it started as a functional tool for me. It morphed into a diagnostic tool for me.
Right.
And it's just as simple as I find myself thinking, we're bumping a little too much lately. You know what? Arden might need a little more insulin. We're nudging a little too much
ratio
recently.
Or basal or whatever.
And Jenny has the exact opposite thought. She thinks I'm bumping a lot lately. Maybe my insulin's too strong. But it doesn't matter. However it makes sense in your head is what matters. And you can, by the way, make up 2 different words. I don't care. Off the top of my head, I don't know what they would be, but I'm sure you could type in bump synonym into Google and figure it out, make it your own thing. But I think that it's very important, because we watch blood sugars move and don't do anything about it, thinking this is my ratio, I did the right thing, this is right. And then what happens later is people say to me, well, how do you know how much? And that's the stuff I want to dig into in a pro tip episode. So I'm going to leave this one here. It's a good definition for what bump and nudge is. If it sounds interesting to you, go find the diabetes pro tip episodes. And personally, I wouldn't jump right to bump and nudge. I'd listen to all of them, but you'll get to it at some point. I genuinely believe, Jenny, by the way, I'm going to leave this in this episode here, that those episodes that you and I have done together, I think they move people's A1C 1.5. Like, I think people are seeing like 1.5 out of it. I think and then there's
it would be great to get some statistics just off of that, even a question or a survey to say, hey, for those of you who are listening to the pro tips, how much, if any, change have you had in your A1C? That would be great to collect.
I'll say this out loud here. Most people won't understand these words, but if the Helmsley Foundation is listening and you want to find out if a podcast can actually make your health better, hit me up.
That's right. There you go.
I need a little help with the website and the data collection, and, a couple of dollars might not hurt that, because I don't know how to do it on my own. That's for certain. Okay. So that was bumping and nudging. Hey, here's some quick contact information for the sponsors if you're interested. To get the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor, you're going to want to go to dexcom.com/juicebox and hit the button that says Get Started with Dexcom G6. It's just that simple. If you get there and you want to read a little bit, definitely check into it. 0 finger sticks, customizable alarms and alerts, smart device compatibility with Android and iPhone, the ability to share data or data. I guess it depends on where you live in the country or the world. Although right now some people are like, it's data or it's data. You're fighting with each other, but you're just fighting with a voice in your head. So don't do that. Anyway, no matter how you say it, you can share that data with up to 10 people. It's amazing, right? Your kid could be at school being tracked by their mother, father, grandmother, school nurse. Maybe even have your neighbor follow along, just, in case of emergencies, for people who like their neighbors. So all 7 of you who like your neighbors, that's an option. Anyway, dexcom.com/juicebox. You're also going to want an Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. That you're going to get at myomnipod.com/juicebox. And Omnipod has quite the little deal where they'll send you a free, no obligation demo of the Omnipod to your home so that you can wear it. What? I've worn an Omnipod demo before. It's astonishing how quickly you forget you're wearing something. And you'll really get a feeling for what it's going to be like to have a tubeless insulin pump, right? Just this little device that's with you and nothing else to clip to your belt or stuff in your bra or do anything like that with. And there's no obligation. So, if it doesn't cost anything and they're not holding you to it, you might as well give it a try. myomnipod.com/juicebox. And of course, if you go to contournext1.com, there's a button at the top of the page to see if you're eligible for an absolutely free blood glucose meter. And I have to tell you, I have a little more context now because at the moment I'm wearing a Dexcom Pro to get the feeling for it. You'll hear me talk about that later. But because I'm doing that, I'm testing a lot. So not just with Arden, but I'm testing myself to get a feeling for, where the CGM's sitting with accuracy. And all that stuff that I've been telling you has been my experience about using the meter with my daughter goes double for me. Small, convenient, accurate, pocket size. It's great. The light works great at night. And trust me, my eyes are, you know what I mean? They're not what they used to be. contournext1.com. And of course, Touched by Type 1. Please, please, please go to touchedbytype1.org to check out the good work that these amazing people are doing for children living with type 1 diabetes and people with type 1 diabetes in general. They raise money to support a cure. They put on all these kinds of great programs to support the community. You could be part of it. touchedbytype1.org. Plays out. I'd like to remind you about a couple of other, I don't know what to call them, bonuses, extras, freebies that the Juicebox Podcast offers. First one I mentioned at the top of the show, juiceboxdocs.com. It's my list of listeners' favorite practitioners, CDEs, endocrinologists, anybody who's helping you with your type 1 diabetes. These are people who are forward-thinking, technology-friendly, aren't going to give you a bunch of problems when you come in and show them a graph where you haven't been low, in 3 months, maybe more than like 2% of the time, and your A1C's in the 6s or the 5s. You're going to want somebody who celebrates that with you, not yells at you. So if you don't have that kind of a doctor, check out the list. If you do have that kind of doctor, add them to the list. Juiceboxdocs.com. I'm going to talk right past the music. Do you mind? Let me get ready. They call me One Take Scott. Watch this. No edits. Hold on. Do re. Got a little thing caught here. Hold on a second. I might be. Hold on. I'm going to get a drink. You know what? That did it. I'm all clear. Okay. diabetesprotip.com. You know at this point that there are, I don't even know how many, 20 pro tip episodes with Jenny Smith and I. If you need to find them quickly, diabetesprotip.com. No S, take off the last S for savings. There's actually no savings because the podcast is free, but you know what I mean. Diabetesprotip.com. If you're looking to revisit or share those episodes, do that. These Defining Diabetes episodes are also there. If you scroll down, I think Ask Scott and Jenny is there as well. If it's not, I should put it there, and maybe I will. What else? Oh, the private Facebook group, Juicebox discussion group. 3,500 members strong at this point. Absolutely free place for people to talk about their type 1 diabetes. Are you low carb? Great. These people will talk about it with you. Are you like, hey, I don't do low carb? No problem. The low carb people and the high carb people don't even fight with each other. It's a utopia. Seriously, people are there talking about management ideas, sharing their successes, giving each other encouragement, thoughts, whatever you need, it's there. And it's a great place. Now, if you're a jerk, don't show up there. If you're looking to do the normal old, Facebook arguing with people thing, this is not the place for that. This place is lovely. If you're the kind of person who could be lovely too, Juicebox discussion group on Facebook. Find it. Do a little search. There might even be a link here in the show notes. What else have I done? What have I done? That's from The Nightmare Before Christmas. You wouldn't be able to tell because I have a terrible singing voice. Leave a great review for the podcast if you can. That'd be terrific. Right there in your Apple Podcast app, 5 stars. I love this podcast. Actually, just don't do that. Write something thoughtful. It helps other people be able to trust that they should check out the show. And so if you've had a great result from the podcast and you'd like someone else to also have a great result, a wonderful review would help that along the way. Not only that, share the show with someone else. Pimp it out. Be like, hey, this helped me. Here's how. Here's how you check it out. That's how the show will grow. I felt like that was going to rhyme and then it didn't. Wait, it did. Show and grow rhyme, right? That's how the show will grow. That was weird. I thought it was going to rhyme. It did rhyme. And then I doubted if it rhymed. I don't even know what that says. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. There, of course, will be many, many more. We're not like a podcast. It's like, here's one, and then wait 4 weeks. Here's another one. This one sounds terrible, but I'll let them listen to it anyway. That's not what you're getting here. This is a well-run show. You understand? You come back. You subscribe. Are you subscribing? You've hit subscribe in your podcast app, right? Oh my God. Are you listening online? What are you like 150 years old? What are you doing? Get a podcast app on your phone and hit subscribe. People. I've just had an imaginary argument with a person who doesn't exist. Yeah, I think it's time to stop this.